Take your seats, please. Thank you. My very first announcement before I start the proceedings of this meeting is simply to ask you that those who have got mobile phones, please could you switch them off. If the mobile phone rings, if your cell phone rings while the proceedings are going on, then there is a general rule that you will have to donate one sewing machine to this particular project. So make sure that you are all properly equipped in terms of shutting your equipment. May I just say, first of all, what's going to happen this afternoon? First part of the ceremony is going to be giving bouquet to our distinguished guests who are on the platform here today. And shall we, first of all, start? Are the bouquets there? Yes? Right? The first bouquet will be offered to Shri Ram Dharai, Chairman of the Bombay Stock Exchange. The second, to Mr. Vince Cable. I call him Shri Vince Cable because of his connection with India. The third, Mr. Raj Lumba, Lord Raj Lumba, CBE, who is the pioneer of this project. The next one is my dear friend Vikram Sani, a great orator. And now comes a big problem. The next one on my list is Chris. Chris, we are delighted to have you here, and we'll tell you about him later on. Chris, it's nice to see you here. Look at him very carefully, because at one stage after this is over, he's going to walk from Gateway of India to Bangalore. What you don't know, that by the time he finishes his walk, he'll be half the size of what he is now. And I'm a great pleasure to show you the link between United Kingdom and India is to welcome His Excellency, the Deputy High Commissioner. Lovely to see you here. And no event is complete without the presence of our PR men, based in New York, based in India, based almost everywhere I go. And I can tell you he's one of the best hosts. If you ever go to the United States in New York, just ring him up. He knows the best restaurants to eat in New York. Ajib. Yes. And also a trustee of the Lumba Foundation. Thank you. Are you all sitting comfortably? Great? Right. Let's start the proceedings. The first thing we are going to do is invite the guest to come down here and light the holy flame. Please come. Now comes the best part of the afternoon. In UK, whenever you are staying in a hotel and a big gong or a bell rings, that means it's time for lunch or time for dinner. In this case, it's the symbol of ringing the bell at the Mumbai Stock Exchange. And may I invite my Minister of State, Vince Cable, accompanied by the Chairman of the Bombay Stock Exchange, to perform this very important task. But don't rush for food yet. It wasn't loud enough, Vince. Can you have one more bash? Loud. That's better. Distinguished guests, we start the proceedings of this afternoon. May I first of all say how delighted I am to be present on this important occasion. The purpose is basically very straightforward. It is to recognize the success that India has, but at the same time to tackle those issues which often has confronted this country for a long time. We have among us, as I explained earlier on, Lord Lumba, who started a project called Lumba Foundation. Lumba Foundation is the first organization in the entire world which was able to identify one specific issue, the issue faced, the problems and difficulties faced by widows in India. That was the starting point. And the first thing it did was to raise funds in the United Kingdom to be able to get that funds for poor widows in India and then use those funds for the education of their children. And I remember visiting various parts of the country here and to be able to see the joy within which these people were to get their dignity and respect back because they had the resources to educate their children, and for which I thank Lord Lumba for this initiative. But there is another reason, and I think a lot of people will talk. We in the West are very, very proud about India's achievement in recent times. I just cite an example which I did in a debate in British Parliament to be able to say that we now have a different government, a new government. And when one of your journalists from here rang me up, and he said, "What do you think about the elections in India?" He was trying to ask me whether I supported Janata Party, Bharatiya Janata Party, or Congress. And I said, let me tell you what I think about election in India. The world's largest democracy of nearly 1.2 billion people, that over 650 million people going to vote. That to me was important. Literally 60% of people who voted were people under the age of 25, the youngsters in this country. But more important than that, the real part of the democracy in India was the transfer of power from one government to other. And I think nobody in the world could ever dispute that this is the real test of any democratic nation in being able to transfer this particular power. But with that goes responsibility, and we were delighted in the way the program has been set up. And part of that particular program is to look at issues affecting women and children. But more important than that, within those particular compass of issues, we are delighted that we are trying to run a project now here, which is sustain a large number of people, and the idea is to donate through the resources from the United Kingdom over 500 sewing machines to widows in this part of the world. That to me is a remarkable thing, and I hope it will sustain to an extent or help to sustain the economic development of people who receive these machines. The first thing I want to do is to thank the Bombay Stock Exchange and you, sir, the chairman, for your initiative, and Ashok Chauhan and your staff for giving us the facilities here, but more important than that, in the way you rallied together to be able to make this a success, and we are extremely grateful to you. Sir, may I welcome you here to address this gathering.
Good afternoon to the esteemed members on the dais and every guest in the audience. On behalf of BSE, I would like to welcome Right Honorable Dr. Vince Cable, Secretary of State for Business, Innovation and Skills, and the President of the Board of Trade, UK. I also warmly welcome Right Honorable Lord Navneet Dholakia, Liberal Democrat and Deputy Leader in the House of Lords and Trustee of the Lumba Foundation. We are absolutely delighted and pleased to have amongst us Lord Raj Lumba, CBE, Founder and Chairman Trustee of Lumba Foundation. Thank you, Mr. Pankaj Modi, for being here. This international convention hall has witnessed the development of Indian capital markets over the past many decades. First as a trading ring for the brokers, and then as a convention hall post-digitization. Most of you are aware that BSE was established in 1875 as the Native Share and Stockbrokers Association. Since inception, BSE has offered an efficient capital raising platform to various companies in India. Today, we have all gathered on the call of Lord Raj Lumba, whose great work is very famous and we just heard, and the whole world is aware of it. This foundation has support from well-known personalities like Sherry Blair and Richard Branson, amongst others. The aim of Lumba Foundation is to promote the welfare and economic empowerment of disadvantaged widows and education of their children. The foundation currently makes grants to its sister charity in India, the Srimati Pushpavati Lumba Memorial Foundation. To fulfill its aforesaid aims, and the sister charity distributes funds which support widows and their children in India. In addition, the trustees have agreed to promote fundamental freedom and human rights of widows and their children around the world through advocacy. Today, they will distribute sewing machines to the widows in Mumbai. Through this initiative, they are not only helping women, but essentially empowering them to earn their livelihood and support their families. Corporate social responsibility has assumed greater significance within India Incorporated today. But it's not a new phenomenon here in our country. Some corporates have demonstrated that they are socially responsible and have been quietly spending on social initiatives for long. It's after the passage of the Companies Act 2013, bill that CSR has now become mandatory for corporates, that's based on revenue and profits. Each company with a net worth of more than 500 crores or revenue of over 1,000 crores or a net profit of more than 5 crores has to spend 2% of its net profit on CSR activities. Now a little bit about the BSE, which is the world's largest exchange in terms of number of listed companies, which stands at 5,513. The market capitalization of the fastest exchange of the country, BSE, is very close to reaching the landmark figure of 100 lakh crores. In the past couple of years, BSE has launched a number of market-leading practices such as BSE derivatives, BSE SME, trading in interest rate futures, etc. India's first stock exchange has also become the fastest as BSE upgraded its trading platform to Bold Plus, a new platform which offers a response time of 200 microseconds. It's one of the most transparent and socially responsible exchange. BSE has launched the sustainability indices like S&P BSE CarbonX and S&P BSE GreenX as part of sustainability initiatives. BSE has also appointed a corporate social responsibility officer as per Section 135 of the new corporate law in India, and will be spending 2% of the average of last 3 years' profit as part of the CSR initiative. According to the estimates and some reports, due to this act, around 15,000 companies will spend more than rupees 140 billion in the very first year on CSR. This amount is going to increase as the profits of corporate India is likely to go up in the coming future. Recently, the Government of India has also included donations to Swachh Bharat Kosh, Clean Ganga as part of the CSR. Our belief is that this will help our country grow both socially and economically. On that optimistic note, I would once again like to welcome each one of you personally and look forward to hearing from the dignitaries. Thank you very much.
One of the tasks that I need to perform is to welcome formally Sri Pankaj Modi. Let me just say that he's taken a considerable time off to come from Ahmedabad to visit us for this particular project here. I don't want to give any more clue as to who he is, other than to say to you that when you speak to your brother in Australia, give our regards for a very successful visit that he has made as a Prime Minister. May we formally present him with a bouquet. There you are, hiding behind me. Friends, I now call on Lord Raj Lumba, to address this particular gathering, as I say, the founder member for the Family Trust of Lumba Foundation. Raj Lumba.
Thank you, Lord Delakia, for saying very kind words, not only about myself, but about the Lumba Foundation, which actually makes me feel very happy. Can I address all the people on the dais and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, who have come here today on a Saturday afternoon when they should be spending time with their families to support us. So I'm extremely grateful and thankful for your presence here today. On the 15th of August, the Independence Day, the Prime Minister of India made a few statements. One of them was that India should tackle poverty, should concentrate on development of the country, and build sustainable economy. Now, how can you do that when more than half of the population in this country is below poverty line? It can only be done if you support them, if you help them. There are many, many ways of helping poor people in India. One of them, as the Lumba Foundation feels, is that there should be socio-economic empowerment projects, whether they are with the partnership with the government or with NGOs. And for that matter, I would like to extend my gratitude to BSE today, who have given us this whole hall and the hospitality. In fact, they're taking care of everything here today, and Lumba Foundation is not paying any money for hiring the room or food or anything. And quite frankly, they are going to feed us also in the evening. So thank you very much indeed. I would also like to thank Mr. Pankaj Modi for taking trouble of coming from Gujarat to support this worthy cause. It is a cause, as you heard from Lord Delakia, was never addressed by any country, including the United Nations, until 1997 when we started this charity, and we made sure that the awareness of the plight of widows who are suffering through poverty, illiteracy, lack of social injustice and disease and conflict are looked after. And I'm very pleased to say that the fact that we launched International Widows Day, which takes place every year on 23rd of June, has been recognized by the United Nations. Now it's a UN International Widows Day. And the date is very significant because it was on this day my mother became a widow in 1954 in Punjab. And I saw my mother's sufferings and discrimination which she faced firsthand. I was only 10 years old when my father died, and that is what actually inspired me that there should be something done about the widows so that they do not lose their dignity after the death of their husband. First of all, they lose their dear one, and then society ostracizes them. They call them evil people, they call them inauspicious people, which is very, very unfair. Now, why widows? There are so many other causes as well which need help. But widows actually come in a category which is really on the bottom of the pile. In the UK, in one of the debates in the House of Lords, the British government accepted that widows are actually victims of double discrimination. They are women and they are widows. And as you know, the United Nations has been working for hundreds of years to bring equality to widows, to women, because our society has grown up over the thousands of years in such a way that people think that women are secondary, men are primary, which is not true. Women can do exactly the same job, if not better, than the men, and therefore they should have equal status in our society. And widows should be also considered in the same category. Now, what do we do? The thing is, we can talk and talk and talk about a lot of things, but I think we need to focus. Bill Gates spoke in the House of Lords last week. He didn't talk about everything or anything. He has the money, he can do a lot of things, but he said that I want to address a couple of issues, and one of them was that I would like to address HIV. I would like to address malaria. I would like to address Ebola. These were the only three things he brought in his speech. And I think when you focus on a problem, a lot of people understand it better, they join you, and the problem gets solved. I focused on widows. And for the last 17 years, I have been talking nothing but the plight of widows, to raise their awareness, to educate their children. And a couple of years ago, we found that there are 245 million widows in the world, out of which 42 million widows are in India. And if you take 3 children on average, there are over 100 million children of widows in India who suffer in silence just because husband has died or father has died, and it is not their fault that he died. He probably died through poverty or through disease or through an accident. So I think we all need to focus on an issue, and in this case, we should focus on widows, how to empower them, how to give them socio-economic encouragement and empowerment so that they can support their family and they can also live a life of dignity, which they do not have at this moment. When my father passed away, his body was still lying in the house, and my grandmother, who herself was a widow, ordered my mother to change clothes into white, take bindi off, remove bangles, and never ever wear colored clothes. Now why? Now that is taking dignity of a woman for no fault of her own. And this thing we need to stop. We cannot continue this kind of behavior to widows during 21st century. So I hope, ladies and gentlemen, you would give us support, both financial and otherwise, and get rid of this dilemma which widows suffer. We started this project of sewing machines because through the sewing machine project, a widow can earn money and she can educate her children and she can look after her family members. So this is my request. And before I finish, I would also like to thank a few people who have been supporting us and who are going to support us. One of the person who's going to support us is sitting amongst us is Chris Parsons. Chris has Chris has raised $200,000 for us in 2012 by riding a bicycle from London to Gibraltar. He rode for 17 days, and it was a tremendous effort he made, and he raised a lot of money, and that money has been used to educate children of poor widows in India, and Chris has witnessed many of those projects on the ground. This year, he came to me again and he said, I want to help you more. And I said, how would you help me more? So he said, I'm completing my 30 years with the law firm, and therefore, I would like to have 30 marathons in India from Bombay to Pune, Bangalore. So on 10th of January, he's starting a walk from Gateway of India and will finish after 1 month. Every day of the month, he will be walking 42 kilometers. A total distance of 1,265 kilometers. I hope he survives for the sake of the Lumba Foundation. And as I said, there are many, many people, countless number of people who have been supporting us over the last 17 years. Lord Dallachia is one of them. He was the very first person to join the board of the trustees outside the Lumba family. Sherry Blair, Richard Branson, Harjeev Singh, Vikram Singh, you name it. And the government of British government and Indian government, they have both supported the Lumba Foundation. Even American government has supported the Lumba Foundation. The United Nations has supported the Lumba Foundation. So it is, people always ask me why they are all supporting the foundation, and my answer is simple. It's not me, it's the cause. Thank you very much. I just forgot to make one announcement, ladies and gentlemen. There is Mr. K. Kumar, who is donating 10 lakhs of rupees today to the Lumba Foundation. And I'm very grateful to him. Yeah. You will see him later on in the program.
I'm just waiting for the publicity relating to this. I think a check is coming through. Where is it? Can you invite the donor to come up here? Raj.
Just round says ICCL is donating it. Indian Clearing Corporation.
The donation of this money, Ms. Lumba, Vince, if you like to, 1 second. Chairman. The donation is from ICCL. Please thank them for that. Please convey our thanks to ICCL. Thank you. Now come to the other important aspect. We've been talking about the whole idea of walking from Gateway to Bangalore. And the person you've been waiting to see is my friend Chris Parsons. Chris, would you like to come here and address the gathering? Chris Parsons.
Right, well, you all must be wondering what I must be like, the mad lawyer. Just a little bit about my background. I've been a lawyer for the last 30 years, or next year I will have been a lawyer for 30 years. And I've been doing a job focused solely on India for the last 10 years. And India has become very much my second home. It's become my passion, and if you were to visit my small study in the UK, in a little village called Benenden, you would find that about 2/3 of my small library is full of books on India. And many of my best friends now live in India. I come every month, and have been coming every month for the last 10 years, and I spend 1 week, 2 weeks, or even 3 weeks each time in India. And I travel right across India. So it's not just Mumbai or Delhi, but it's Bangalore, it's Chennai, it's Hyderabad, it's Jodhpur, it's Agra, it's Calcutta, it's Ranchi, it's Sivakasi, it's Nandurbar in the north of Maharashtra, it's Pune, etc. So I've seen many, many parts of India, and I have met many, many Indians. And my experience of India has been that the more that people do to get involved with India, the bigger the commitment there is to India and to Indians, the more the people of India are willing and want to help. And that's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing for me that I have been embraced so much by this country. So that's a little introduction. And now to tell you a bit about my mad walk. I first met Raj about 3.5 years ago. Completely by chance, I believe, unless Raj arranged this, unbeknownst to me. But there was a visiting delegation from Gujarat, And Raj and I were invited to a gathering, a lunch in the City of London. And we ended up sitting next to each other. And at that stage, my 50th birthday was about to come up. And I'd already decided to mark the occasion of my 50th birthday was to do what Raj has mentioned, namely to cycle from London to Gibraltar, which is about 2,000 kilometers. Down from London to the south of England. I then cheated, I did get a ferry, and then I cycled through the whole of France, down the west coast of France, over the Pyrenees mountain range, and then across the plains of Spain down to Gibraltar. And you can imagine Raj, when he heard that I was going to do this cycle for charity, that his ears pricked up, and he said, "Oh, have I told you about the Lumba Foundation?" So he then proceeded to tell me his story. He told me about his mother, and he told me about how fortunate that he had been as a result of the fact that he was fortunate to have had money, or his mother was fortunate to have had money that enabled him to be educated and his siblings also to be educated. And he then explained the plight faced by many widows in India and indeed in other places in the world. And I was struck by this story, and I said that I would be delighted to raise the money through cycling to Gibraltar for the Lumba Foundation. Raj was additionally supportive by saying to me, "If you cycle to Gibraltar, I will meet you there." And he was completely true to his word. And when I arrived in Gibraltar, Raj was there to meet me with his wife and his daughter. And Raj is never very good at doing things in small ways, so he also arranged for the mayor of Gibraltar to be there for a big civic reception. And what Raj doesn't know was the most difficult part of the ride was not the rain in France, or the Pyrenean mountain range, or the heat across the middle of Spain, but it was actually riding at 1 mile an hour up Gibraltar High Street behind 2 Scottish bagpipers. And I was terrified I was going to fall off my bike in front of the crowds that were there. So, where we got to was, now we wind forward 3 years, and as Raj has mentioned, I will be celebrating my 30 years as a lawyer. And the choice of charity was easy. It was going to be the Lumba Foundation. And then it dawned on me, well, if it's 30 years, why not 30 marathons in 30 days? I like to round things up. And I thought I would try and raise $1 million for the Lumba Foundation. So far, we've got to 118,000 today. With 10 lakh, that takes it to 128,000. That would be pounds, so maybe $135,000. So we're inching our way closer to the target. And why Mumbai to Bangalore in January? Well, it won't surprise you to learn that that's a good time to be in Mumbai. The weather will be good. The sun will be shining. There will be less humidity. The coastal path is absolutely beautiful, I am told. And I'm really looking forward to enjoying your country by walking down the west coast, through Goa, through Mangalore, and then across the Western Ghats to Bangalore itself. And I hope that I will arrive, maybe a little lighter, as has been suggested, in 30 days' time on something like the 7th of February. And the other reason for choosing that was that there was this happy coincidence that the UK government and the Indian government have been discussing something called BMEC, which is the Bangalore-Mumbai Economic Corridor. So that was an additional incentive to choose that particular route. Since I have been engaged in this project and talking to people about my walk, it has been striking how many people have said to me that they have had some experience of some of the challenges faced by widows in India. And I met a senior executive in Bangalore when I was last there who explained that his grandmother, that when she became a widow, that she was asked to shave her head, that some field that she had previously owned with her husband were then confiscated. And the final thing, which he explained was the most insensitive part of the whole thing, was that she had some gold stored safely under her bed for her children and their education, etc. And her brother-in-law said, "You will no longer be needing that." And he took the gold right in front of her, and she had no say in the matter. So she was left on her own to fend for herself and her children. And that was a further endorsement of why I feel so strongly about this charity and about wanting to raise a significant amount of money for it. Raj, in his usual way, has ensured that we've had wonderful endorsement. He's mentioned the Deputy Prime Minister, Sherry Blair, Sir Richard Branson. For my part, and you mustn't tell my wife this, but I met Chris Gayle, the West Indian cricket player, when I was last in Bangalore. This is the bit you mustn't tell my wife. I met him while I was sitting by the swimming pool, and he was also by the swimming pool, and he engaged me in conversation, and we talked a little bit about what he was doing in India. He was obviously playing IPL cricket, and he very kindly gave me a ticket for the game that evening. And later that week, we had dinner together. And he said that he would happily support and endorse the walk and the Lumba Foundation. And since then, he's also sent me $1,000, so 1 lakh rupee. So there are lots of very good people in this world, and I'm very grateful to Chris Gayle for providing money. And then, in addition, corporate India has also got behind the initiative. I sent an email several months ago. In fact, it is a very happy coincidence, to Ram. And I said, do you think that TCS, Ram at that stage was the vice chairman of Tata Consulting, and Ram very kindly forwarded my email and encouraged support. So TCS are very kindly supporting the accommodation and my food during the walk. And then I also happened to have met the chief executive of Pepsi, and through him, their Gatorade brand, which is their energy drink brand, which is like Red Bull or Lucozade, and they're going to be providing product for my walk. I hope that I will need all of the energy that I can get. And in addition, they're very kindly providing a vehicle and a driver as my support vehicle. So that will carry my luggage, it will carry snacks, etc., for the duration of my walk. And then the final piece is Apollo Hospitals. I met the founder of Apollo Hospitals, Preeta Reddy, in Chennai, and she said, "How can we help you, Chris?" And I said, "Do you know what I really, really need? I need a physio. I need some bodily maintenance during the course of my travels." And so Apollo Hospitals are very kindly going to provide a physio to travel with me. So during the course of the walk, in the afternoon, in the evening, I'm going to be having some help with my body, particularly my legs and my hips, etc. So I'm very grateful to them. And I've also had access to a doctor and a dietitian, etc. There is one person I do want to mention who's also been helping me, and all of you should know this person as well, and he's sitting in the audience, and his name is H.V. Kumar, and he is here with 2 of his colleagues, and H.V. Kumar is known as the Highway King, and if you Google the Highway King, you will find this man and his team of people. They are the world's experts on the roads of India. And if you ever found yourself in the remotest part of Kashmir and your fuel pipe broke, within an hour, Kumar will have somebody there to sort it out for you. So he's a man you need to get to know. So do meet him afterwards, please. And he's been incredibly supportive. He's driven the entire route, and he's marked on the route every single clinic, every chai stop, every dabba stop, every ATM stop, every hotel, etc. So I'm not going to get lost. And they're going to produce a detailed app. So 2 points in conclusion then, please. One is I'm happy to walk, pretty happy to walk. Now, I'm really looking forward to it, although I have to say I'm a little bit nervous about the challenge that I've set myself. But I do need help, please, to raise $1 million, or the balance of $1 million. So this is a big appeal to all of you and to all of the people that might read about this in the media, whether on the television or in the press or on the radio, to help put their shoulder behind the Lumba Foundation and support additional fundraising through the walk. So I would just encourage you to do that. And then to finish, I would like to say that if you find yourself at a loose end at 5 a.m. in the morning on Saturday, the 10th of January, at the Gateway of India, please do wish me well and wave me goodbye. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Is Chris in the audience? Chris, the one who has planned his route, is he on the audience? Yeah. Where is he? Please stand up. Give him thanks for what he's done. What Chris hasn't told you and what we have planned, I don't know whether you know, that despite his planning, we know that one of the biggest traffic jam you ever get is in Bangalore. And we told the government of Bangalore, state of Bangalore, that if they are not very careful and don't give us any donation, then Chris will create the biggest traffic jam that Bangalore has ever seen. It's my great pleasure now to introduce my dear friend, Vikram Sahni, Padma Shri Vikram Sahni. He's well renowned in India for his charitable work with the Sikh community. But more important than that, he is also the president of World Punjabi Organization. He straddles between the United States, United Kingdom, and India. And everywhere you go, on any charitable function, Vikram Sahni's name is on top of the list. I'm so pleased, Vikram, may I invite you to address the audience.
Right Honorable Dr. Vince Cable, Secretary of State for Business, Innovation and Skills, and President of the Board of Trade UK, my dear mentor and the person who inspires me the most, Lord Dholakia, PC OBE, Shri Ram Durai, Chairman BSc, Lord Raj Lumba, CBE, Founder and Chairman of the Lumba Foundation, Chris Parson, whom you just heard, and of course, Mr. Kumar Iyer, Harjeev Singh ji. It's my pleasure to be here this afternoon at BSc to fully support the cause of empowerment of widows in the state of Maharashtra launched by Lumba Foundation, which is being supported by Sun Foundation, which I head. I've been associated with Raj Lumba ji since the inception, in fact, in the very early days when the project for support of widows, which is very dear to the heart of Mr. Lumba, a few years back, when this whole project was perceived, and we are happy that he has done a remarkable work and it has expanded a pan-India basis and also globally. Today we are supporting from Sun Foundation the support for the machines together with Lumba Foundation, the sewing machines to 500 widows. But more important is to give these sisters, widows, the skills. So Sun Foundation will be empowering them with skills in stitching and embroidery and graphic designing, pattern making, the whole lot of things, so that we empower them. And when we empower or educate a widow, I think we are empowering the entire generation, and I was told that the impact of this is about tenfold. It is also pity, as was being said just before, that we look down upon our widows. On one side, we worship. I was thinking while driving to this place, we worship Ma Kali and Ma Durga and Mother Mary, but we shun the very widows which are an embodiment of these very goddesses. So I think let's dedicate ourselves to the eradication of poverty as a clarion call given by our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, whose brother, Mr. Pankaj Modi ji, is also gracing this occasion, and we are really grateful to have you on this very noble occasion. And also Dr. Vince Cable, who is an embodiment of India-Britain partnership. And I was thinking this charity is also, Dr. Vince Cable, is like a Commonwealth charity, where Lord Dholakia, Lord Lumba from UK, they had some pain in their heart for the widows staying, miles across back home in India, and where they are doing so much fundraising in UK. So we also want to thank for your patronage and support for this sort of Indo-Britain partnership, or I call a Commonwealth kind of charity. In the end, I would say that as Dr. Nelson Mandela said, we have inherited this universe from our ancestors, and it is our duty to hand over to our next generation in a much better form than we inherited. So I think it's duty, every Indian citizen, as declared by Shri Narendra Modi, is duty-bound to help, to empower, to have-nots, and especially the widows, the 42 million widows as we have in India. If we can empower them, if we can educate them, if the whole generation, the whole family can be empowered. And as they say, charity begins at home. So I think let's do our bit of it at micro level. And thank you very much. Thank you.
Can I just say that you have seen the sewing machines over there, and in the audience there are a large number of people, particularly the clients that we are talking about, the people for whom the charity is working towards. They are here, and arrangements will be made in terms of donating 500 sewing machines to some of them who are here, some of them who may not be here, but the total at least would be 500 as a starter, and I thank Lumba Foundation for that. The second thing I now need to do is to introduce to you, again, sir, your presence here is most welcome. You traveled all the way from Ahmedabad, and perhaps you could address her for a few minutes. Thank you.
लुम्बा फाउंडेशन के कर्णधार, दूसरे अर्थ में मैं कहूँगा तो राष्ट्र सेवा यज्ञ के ऋषि पुरुष लॉर्ड मिस्टर लुम्बा, मंचस्थ महानुभाव, उपस्थित देवियाँ, सज्जनों, मेरे पूर्व वक्ताओं ने मेरे बारे में कुछ तारीफ भी कर दी, लेकिन सही अर्थ में यदि कोई तारीफ़ कालिब है तो लॉर्ड लुम्बा जी और उनकी टीम है। इस संस्था से, फाउंडेशन से मेरा कोई परिचय नहीं था। कुछ दिन पहले ही लॉर्ड लुम्बा जी मेरे मित्र आशीष भाई के साथ मेरे दफ्तर में आए। मैं भी एक राज्य व्यवस्था में सीनियर अधिकारी हूँ। पहला परिचय हुआ, उनसे मैंने बात सुनी किस प्रकार से विधवा माताओं के लिए सेवा यज्ञ उन्होंने शुरू किया है। मुझे बहुत ही खुशी हुई। खुशी इसलिए हुई कि मैं भी एक विधवा माँ का बेटा हूँ। बात हुई, मैंने उनको कंफर्म किया कि मैं आपके फंक्शन में आ रहा हूँ। जाते समय वो खड़े हुए तो मेरे स्टाफ वाले थे, सबकी हाजिरी में जो एक ऑफिस का डेकोरेटम होता है वो तोड़कर मैंने उनके चरण छुए, उनको मैं नमस्कार किया, प्रणाम किया। उन्हें बताया ये क्या कर रहे हैं। मैंने बोला मैं आपको चरण नहीं छू रहा हूँ, आप जिस प्रकार से जो सेवा यज्ञ करने निकले हो, एक वंदनीय कार्य है, एक पुण्य कार्य है, तो मेरा एक दायित्व बनता है कि मैं भी आपके चरण छूऊँ, आपके आशीर्वाद लूँ, ताकि मुझे भी प्रेरणा मिले कि इस प्रकार से जहाँ जहाँ भी इस प्रकार के सेवा यज्ञ होते रहे, वहाँ मैंने भी कुछ न कुछ किसी न किसी प्रकार से अपना योगदान दूँ। हम सब यहाँ देख रहे हैं कि लुम्बा फाउंडेशन की ओर से भारत भर में हर राज्य में विधवा माताओं को सिलाई मशीन दिया जा रहा है। हमने अपने समाज व्यवस्था में देखा है, आज तक वर्षों से, कई सदियों से पुण्यदान होते रहते हैं। जो ज़रूरतमंद होते हैं उनको कुछ न कुछ देने की भावना से, पुण्य की भावना से हमारे पूर्वजों ने कुछ न कुछ किया है। जो हमारी एक समाज व्यवस्था बनी हुई थी, इस समाज व्यवस्था से हटकर लुम्बा फाउंडेशन ने एक अलग तरीका खोज निकाला। इन्होंने सोइंग मशीन देने का विचार किया। वो चाहते थे तो हमारी पूर्वजी को और उनको भी 1 साल का 2 साल का राशन के घर में दे सकते थे, परिवार का गुजारा हो सकता था, लेकिन उन्होंने ये काम नहीं किया। उन्होंने बहुत दूर की लंबी सोची। उन्होंने एक मशीन देने का संकल्प किया। ये मशीन के जरिए अपने विधवा माता कुछ न कुछ सिलाई काम करेगी, आमदनी होगी, अपना परिवार को खड़ा कर पाएगी। तो इस प्रकार से जो हमारी पहली जो पुरानी व्यवस्था थी, जो दान पुण्य की व्यवस्था है, वो व्यक्ति को अपाहिज करते हैं। वो बैसाखी देने का काम है, आज दिया 1 साल 2 साल में खत्म हो जाएगा, वो अपनी व्यवस्था रुक जाएगी। जबकि लुम्बा फाउंडेशन ने परिवार को खड़ा करने का काम किया है, इनको अपाहिज बनने का काम नहीं किया है। इस प्रकार से लुम्बा फाउंडेशन ने एक सबसे बड़ा कार्य किया है। इसलिए ये व्यवस्था में जुड़े सभी मित्र को मैं साधुवाद देता हूँ। आप लोगों ने इस पुण्य कार्य में मुझे बुलाया, मैं अपने आप को गौरवान्वित महसूस करता हूँ। मैं ज़रूर छोटा हूँ तो, लेकिन जब यहाँ आया हूँ, अच्छा कार्य आप लोग कर रहे हैं तो एक सुझाव करने का मन हो रहा है मुझे। आप ये सिलाई मशीन दे रहे हैं, ये भी एक हमारी पुरानी व्यवस्था है। समाज आगे बढ़ता जा रहा है, शिक्षा का व्याप बढ़ता जा रहा है, तो हम व्यवस्था के साथ कदम क्यों न मिलाए। जो विधवा माताएं हमारी हैं, उनको भी, उनके परिवार में भी कोई बेटी है जो पढ़ना चाहती है। आज कंप्यूटर का ज़माना है, क्यों ना वो बेटी को हम कंप्यूटर नहीं दे पाए, वो देना चाहिए। इस दिशा में हमें सोचना चाहिए। सिर्फ सिलाई मशीन से काम नहीं चलेगा, उनके बेटियों को आगे बढ़ाना, उनको शिक्षा देने के लिए भी हमारे फाउंडेशन कुछ न कुछ कार्य करे, यही मैं उम्मीद रखता हूँ। आज सुबह महाराष्ट्र के मुख्यमंत्री जी ने भी लुम्बा जी और उनके ट्रस्ट को आशीर्वाद दिया है। इससे पहले दूसरे राज्यों ने भी आशीर्वाद दिया है। गुजरात में भी इसी प्रकार काम करने वो आगे बढ़ रहे हैं। मैं चाहूँगा इनका ये सेवा यज्ञ आने वाले दिनों में पूरे भारत में, हर गांव में, हर क्षेत्र में विस्तार हो, यही मेरी शुभकामना है। धन्यवाद।
Before I call on the Secretary of State, Vince Cable, there will be a short video which I would like you to see.
Lumba Foundation for the work they are doing for the widows.
Sound.
Especially Lord Lumba and Chris as well, who would be working for the welfare of widows, who would be raising a fund for welfare of widows in India, and he would be working from Mumbai to Bangalore, which is, I think, a very good gesture. And I appeal people to also participate, because helping those who are not so empowered is endeavor of each and every person. And I again want to congratulate the Lumba Foundation.
Yes, we'll do that. I think what we'll do is to try and get them sound system.
I would like to congratulate Lumba Foundation for the work they are doing for the widows, especially Lord Lumba and Chris as well, who would be working for the welfare of widows, who would be raising a fund for welfare of widows in India, and he would be working from Mumbai to Bangalore, which is, I think, a very good gesture. And I appeal people to also participate, because helping those who are not so empowered is endeavor of each and every person. And I again want to congratulate the Lumba Foundation.
Just to let you know, those who may not have heard the sound system properly, this was our new Chief Minister in Maharashtra, Devendra Fadnavis. We visited him this morning at 11 o'clock, and he was full of praise for Lumba Foundation and has welcomed this initiative, asked us what help he could give us, but more than that, he has requested all the success for this important project. Ladies and gentlemen, we now come probably to the most important aspect of this political gathering. We are indeed very, very fortunate to have a Minister of State, Secretary of State for Business, Innovation and Skill in the United Kingdom, Vince Cable. Vince Cable has also been an acting leader of the Liberal Democrat a little while ago. But more important than that, the extent to which he has built the link between India and the United Kingdom. Almost every 3 months when I ring up his office and say, where is Vince Cable? So he's either in Bangalore or in Delhi or Calcutta. But there's another reason, that he has a very important connection with India. He spent very much some part of his life visiting India. His wife at one time came from India, and I think he's always at ease whenever he meets people of our community. I'm delighted to welcome Vince Cable, Secretary of State, United Kingdom.
Distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure for me to be here at this event for several reasons. First of all, it gives me an opportunity to support the work of the Lumba Foundation and Lord Lumba. This is a magnificent charity doing important work, and I think sending quite a powerful signal that the best way to help deal with poverty is not just to hand out money, but it's to equip people with a skill so that they can help themselves. And I think there is another important message too, which is to business, that business is business is business. It's about making money, and that's perfectly good and often honorable. But business has a wider social responsibility. And the support that the foundation has had from the business community is an example of that. My second reason for valuing this occasion is a personal one, and Lord Delakia has referred to it. I always welcome an opportunity to come back to India. I first came here 50 years ago, and I've seen the extraordinary transformation of this country, the increasing tempo of growth. India is now on purchasing power measures, the fourth biggest economy in the world. And I contrast the India I see today with the India I remember. I came to Mumbai, I think in the early 1970s, and I remember very well getting a small boat at the ferry terminal to go across the harbor to Uran, where my brother-in-law ran a factory. And there was a strike. We couldn't get in the factory. The Communist Union had closed everything down. And indeed, they closed down the whole of Mumbai. And it was a time when business was a dirty word. And shortly after that time, the then Prime Minister nationalized the banks, brought in some other expropriations. It was not a good time to do business. But since then, successively, there has been an understanding that business is important for development, that entrepreneurs are crucial to economic growth, and India now has one of the most dynamic business communities in the world, operating internationally and not just in India. And that leads me to my third reason, which is my official reason. As a member of the British Cabinet, one of my key roles is developing commercial relations, trade and investment relationship with India. I come here frequently. I was here 3 weeks ago in Pune and elsewhere, meeting your business leaders and politicians, and it's been one of my pleasures to meet the members of the new government and establish a good working relationship with them. You may see that I have a rather fancy title. You may not understand what it means. It's in the UK, I head up what would be regarded as a cross-cutting department. I do some of the responsibilities that in India would be done by Dr. Jaitley, by Mrs. Sitaram, the Trade Minister, and to some extent the Skills Minister, and I've had the pleasure of meeting them. And on Monday I go back to meet Mr. Gadkari to take forward some of the work we're doing on projects in India. And I think what I have learned in the last few months is how far and how fast the commercial relations with India are now developing. UK companies' investment in India is now by far the largest of any Western country. In fact, there is now more British investment in India than the United States and Japan combined. And I mention that not simply because of the quantity. Quantity can mean anything or nothing. They can be good or bad companies, but because many of the companies invested here do see themselves having a wider social responsibility. I'll just give some examples. One of the best long established is Hindustan Lever. The UK parent company, or it's an Anglo-Dutch company, Unilever, was one of the pioneers of social responsibility in business. Some years ago, when they announced their policy, the stock exchange price fell 10% because the investors were alarmed. But then it outperformed the market for many years and showed that social responsibility is actually good business. Or to take another example, HSBC, which is one of the two biggest banks in the world in balance sheet terms, headquartered in London. HSBC has established business schools in India for rural women. About 25,000 women have been through those institutions. Another of our very big banks, RBS, which was center of the financial crisis a few years ago, has now rebuilt itself, and it's investing substantially in India, leading a lot of the work on climate change. Or I could mention M&S, Marks and Spencer's, which understands its social responsibility to include looking after the 2 million workers in its supply chain, not the people who work in head office, but the whole of the supply chain going down to village workers and ensuring that they're properly trained and that they're properly paid. And perhaps just one final example would be Vodafone, which sees as part of its mission establishing a system which started in Africa, the M-Pesa system, which is now being used in India too, whereby poor people can do basic banking by mobile phone. So I think all of these are good examples of companies which are not just investing money here, and of course making money, that's their role, but also making an important social contribution. But I think what is also crucial to stress is that this isn't just a question of British companies investing in India. Increasingly, Indian companies are investing in the UK. Not many people are aware that Britain's biggest industrial company is Indian-owned. Tata are our biggest producer of steel. They produce cars. TCS, the IT sector. I recently hosted a big event for them in the Science Museum in London. And we discovered that there were something of the order of 60,000 people employed in Tata companies in the UK. And what is attractive about them to me as a business minister, as in with quite a few of the other Indian companies that are now established in Britain, is that they take a long-term view. These are not what we call fly-by-night companies. They think of 10, 20 years ahead. And if you're developing an economy, it is absolutely crucial to have that long-term perspective. But let me, in the concluding part of what I have to say, just raise the bigger question: how do we ensure that businesses are responsible? How do we make it happen? It is an issue for India, and it's an issue in the UK also. And part of the answer is legislation, and part of the answer is self-interest. And let me say a little bit about each. In India, you have introduced a legislative approach through the 2% levy. And as I understand it, very large sums are now being raised for corporate social responsibility in India. I think the figure I was given were £2 billion, which is, I think, 20,000 crore rupees. 1,000 crore rupees coming from British-based businesses alone. So there's a very substantial amount of money that is now being ploughed into socially valuable projects as a result of profits earned by companies operating in India. In the UK, we don't have a levy, but what we do have is a system of company law which places an obligation on directors not simply to take account of shareholder value, but also to take responsibility for the communities in which they operate. And in both India and the UK, we are gradually strengthening the legal framework within which companies make that contribution. For example, in India, I know that in terms of listed companies on the Sensex, there is now an obligation to report through narrative reporting on sustainability. You now have a carbon index, which was developed, I think, with the support of the British Aid Ministry and British companies. And we're doing a similar thing in the United Kingdom. I've brought in legislation myself for improved narrative reporting so that investors can be more selective in the companies in which they put their money. I've also been bringing in legislation in the UK to ensure more transparency so that we can see exactly what the leading listing companies are doing. A few examples. We now have legislation for underlying beneficial ownership. So every company, it is possible to see who the underlying owners actually are, and it's open to the public. We now have a system of identifying much more accurately and publicly executive pay, so that investors, including pension funds and insurance companies, can challenge executive pay and demand a binding vote on the outcome. We have just brought in legislation to make it obligatory on British companies acting abroad, including in India, but mainly extractive companies in Africa, to declare who they make payments to. All royalty payments have to be openly, publicly declared. And we've got legislation just starting its passage through Parliament, which we call an anti-slavery bill, which will require companies to monitor and support their supply chains following the Rana Plaza disaster in Bangladesh, which of course isn't just the responsibility of the Bangladeshi companies, but it's the responsibility of the big international companies who source their production. And I think in these different ways, different legislative solutions, we are seeing in India and in the UK a much higher level of awareness of what companies do and should do. The second approach is self-regulation, self-interest, encouraging companies to think in terms of their own enlightened self-interest. A good example of this is the work being done on diversity, and particularly the role of women. Given that this event in many ways is celebrating the contribution that women can make to the economy in rural areas, but also I just want to emphasize the importance of women in leadership positions. I shouldn't need to lecture you in India. You had an a woman Prime Minister before we had in the UK. And you've also got some very important women business leaders. I just made a note of some, but Meera Sanyal, Dr. Lal Kidwai, who I've dealt with extensively in Delhi, Indira Nui, who heads up Coca-Cola. But of course, these are exceptions. And we became aware in the UK 4 years ago that we had very few women in top positions in our leading quoted companies. So I started a campaign with my colleagues to make sure every single one of the top 100 companies quoted in the stock exchange had a woman on the board. I won't ask how you are here in Mumbai, but maybe it's a question you should ask. We discovered it was only about 12%. We've now set a target of 25% for next year, which we think we will meet. And every single one of those 100 companies will have a woman on the board. And I've called in the companies that don't and said, get on with it. It's no legislation, it's persuasion, but it is beginning to make a serious impact. But perhaps I should just leave you with that thought, that social responsibility of companies is important in itself. I think there is a growing recognition in business that this is something they have to do because shareholders demand it, because customers demand it, because future young people coming into companies demand it. And I think the value of this occasion is because it brings together, on the one hand, business, we're in a citadel of the stock exchange, together with valuable charitable work. And they're not inconsistent, they're totally compatible, and we should ensure that that process is strengthened. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vince. We're now coming to the closing part of this particular conference, and I have a very important task to perform, is to call on a person who's literally flown about 2 hours ago to make a to make a short contribution. This is my friend Harjeev Singh, flown from the United States, operates both in the United States, England, and in India as a public relations consultant. Harjeev Singh.
Namaste, good afternoon. It is a tough act to follow all these distinguished gentlemen on the panel here, but I'm going to keep my remarks very brief. Few things. I think it's important for people to also know a little bit about Lord Lumba, who's behind this foundation and is somebody who I have had the privilege of working with for about 9 years now. He convinced me in New York about 9 years ago to come and be part of the foundation, and it has been a remarkable journey of learning for me myself, as well as meeting such wonderful people and also engaging with a very important cause, which you've all heard about today. I'd like you all to just think about a couple of things. One is, definitely please come and visit our website. I want to reinforce the fact that it is one thing for us all to come here and talk about the foundation, but we really will only benefit if all of you engage with us on a regular basis. Please certainly do come to our website, which is actually the name of the foundation, the lumbafoundation.org. There's a lot of information up there on how you can engage with us. Please certainly do that. But more importantly, I think what most people often do when they engage with the foundation, they don't really see Lord Lumba, who really makes us look very good because of his energy, because of his indomitable will. He is probably more frequently traveled than I am. I think I travel a lot, but he makes sure that he's everywhere, really spreading the message of the foundation. He recently won the UN Humanitarian Award in New York, which I think is just one of the few sort of distinguished awards he's gotten. He's gotten lots more, and I think that is something we should really, really give him a big hand for. Also, Chris Parsons. Chris, good luck with this marathon. I think it is so important for us as Indians, all of us, to engage with this, and we really look forward to it. And I hope we can get to the $1 million soon. Pankajji, thank you for highlighting the fact that we need to do something with technology. I think that is something we will also discuss. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here on a Saturday afternoon. Thank you.
Can I now invite the chairman of the Bombay Stock Exchange to present mementos to distinguished guests on the platform. Next one. The next person is Dr. Vince Cable just now, Pankaj Modi, Sri Pankaj Modi. Lord Lumba. Ashish Brahmbhatt, do come in. Come up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Chris Parsons. Padma Shri Vikram Sani. Shri Hajiv Singh. We got representative from Apollo Hospital here. Do come in. Sorry? Where is he? Kumaraya. We now have representative from PepsiCo. Representative from TCS. And I couldn't forget my good friend Kumar Iyer, the Deputy High Commissioner. This completes the formal business, but there are two small things which you may enjoy. First of all, while there is a refreshment being served, you will see a video of what precisely happens in relation to the project where machines have been granted and how it has economically benefited what we've been talking all this afternoon. The second thing I want to do is to thank all the distinguished guests who have been speaking to us today. But I do want to thank those who have been behind the scene and have been doing such an important work. Ashish Brahmbhatt has been the kingpin behind doing a lot of work for us. But Shri Damodar Rai, if I may say so, some of your staff do deserve a promotion, and if I may just mention their names. These are Yatin. Where are you, Yatin? Hiding somewhere. Oh, there he is. Yatin, thank you for all the help you've given. Amish, where is Amish? He's gone somewhere out. Okay, Amish, thank you. Liji, where are you? All of them here. Shivani. But last but not least, I want to thank Jai Parekh, who is that's his wife clapping her husband here. Don't worry. Jai Parekh, thank you as an advisor of Lumba Foundation for all your work, not just today for this conference, but all you've done for us. And Gita Parekh, who acts as my research advisor, both in this country and in the United Kingdom. Thank you, all of you. Good luck and good wishes. Enjoy this refreshment and have a look at the video. Thank you very much indeed.